Trump's latest move in the rare earths war has just sent shockwaves through the global mining industry. And it's not what you think. While everyone's focused on his tariff threats against China, Trump quietly orchestrated what could be the most strategic mining takeover in decades.
Who've all been betrayed by Mark Carney's broken promises on trade. He promised to put his elbows up, handle Trump, negotiate a win, and have a deal by July 21st. Still no deal, still no win, still no elbows, and the only thing that's up are American tariffs on Canada since the Prime Minister took office. After his humiliating meeting in the White House last week, the President sensed weakness in Mark Carney and decided to have his Commerce Secretary announce that the auto tariffs would be permanent and to jack up lumber tariffs another 10%. Mark Carney.
The numbers tell an extraordinary story. Treelog Metals, a Canadian rare earths developer, just rocketed nearly 140% in a single day after the U.S. government purchased a 10% stake in the company. But here's the kicker. This development stage company is now up more than 1,200% over the past 12 months, with a market cap approaching $1 billion. That's not a typo. A company that was trading in penny stock territory just months ago is now worth nearly $1 billion. But this isn't just about one company's incredible run. It's about a fundamental shift in how America is approaching the most critical economic battle of our time, the war for rare earth minerals. And China just escalated that war in a way that could reshape the entire global economy.
We'll have them keep a little bit of distance, and we're going to see if we can get it done. This is number 9, okay? This will be number 9 for me. I've solved 8, including the Middle East. I've solved 8. This, I thought, would have been among the easiest. We solved, President Putin mentioned yesterday Armenia, all of the different wars. He said it was amazing because but the big one that he was surprised that we were able to settle was the Middle East. He thought it was incredible. He was very generous in that sense. This should be something we're able to settle, and I think we will be able to settle. Yeah, Brian.
On that note, you will go down as the peacemaker, no doubt, and you will resolve this war.
Well, we resolved 8 others. It's funny how people say that. If you get this one, every time I do one, they forget about that one. I solved 8 wars. Go to Rwanda and the Congo, talk about India and Pakistan, look at Thailand, look at all of the wars that we solved. And every time I solve one, they say, if you solve the next one, you're going to get the Nobel Prize. I didn't get a Nobel Prize. Somebody got it who's a very nice woman, very nice. I don't know who she is, but she was very generous. So I don't care about all that stuff. I just care about saving lives. But this will be number 9. But every time I solve one, they said, sir, if you solve one more, you're going to be known as a peacekeeper. So to the best of my knowledge, we've never had a president that solved one war. Not one war. Bush started a war. A lot of them start wars, but they don't solve the wars. They don't settle them. And especially when they have nothing to do with us. I saw almost, I guess, just about all of these wars had nothing to do with us. But I saved tens of millions of lives. The Prime Minister of Pakistan said, I saved millions.
The U.S. stock market plunged by the widest margin in 6 months on Friday, with the S&P 500 shedding nearly 3%, after President Donald Trump threatened a massive increase of tariffs on Chinese products due to China's tightening grip on rare earth exports. On Thursday, Beijing announced that it was increasing export controls for 5 more rare earth metals, bringing the total number of critical minerals to 5 under export control to 12. To understand why this matters, you need to grasp just how dependent the world has become on China for these materials. China controls about 70% of the global supply of rare earths minerals, which are critical for high-tech industries, including automobiles, defense, and semiconductors. But the real stranglehold goes even deeper. China is the undisputed leader of the critic mineral supply chain, producing nearly 70% of the world's supply of rare earths from mines and processing almost 90%, meaning they're not just mining these materials, they're importing them from other countries and refining them too. This gives China unprecedented power over the global economy. We should not miss the fundamental point on rare earths. China has crafted a policy that gives it the power to forbid any country on earth from participating in the modern economy, according to Dean Ball, who served as a senior advisor in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Think about that for a moment. China literally has the power to cut off any country from the modern economy.
I think it's nothing wrong with flattery and all those things if it gets you results. But the coalition the prime minister needs of the premiers and industry supporting his approach, I think is starting to fracture a little bit. I think it's starting to show weakness. It was very unified 5, 6 months ago, but it was all on this bet that we could pacify this president, mollify him, and actually get to a trade deal. But then we hear his trade representative saying, forget it on auto, and then more and more tariffs hitting Canadians and Canadian workers.
And how much of that do you think is sort of, I guess, exacerbated or influenced or impacted, Brian, by the fact that we have kind of adopted the framing that the U.S. wanted heading into these kinds of negotiations, which is sector by sector, right? Like, there's not going to be anything overarching.
These minerals are critical to manufacturing everything from smartphones and electric vehicles to military hardware and renewable energy technology. Rare earths are used to make magnets that are crucial inputs in U.S. weapons platforms, like the F-35 warplane, Tomahawk cruise missiles, and Predator drones. Rare earth magnets are also used in commercial civilian applications, such as robotics, electric vehicles, and the semiconductor industry. So when China announced its latest export restrictions, requiring starting on December 1st a license for foreign companies to export products with more than 0.1% of rare earths from China, or that are made with Chinese production technology, it wasn't just another trade move. It was economic warfare. Trump's response was swift and decisive.
First of all, here at home, Mark Carney needs to get out of the way. He needs to get out of the way of our industrial, steel, autos, and other sectors by getting rid of the industrial carbon tax that's contributing to job losses. We can't have a Carney carbon tax and Trump tariffs at the same time. Get out of the way and allow businesses to build pipelines, dig mines, approve ports, plants, LNG facilities, and countless other economic infrastructure that we can build without President Trump. Get out of the way and remove all taxes off of home building so that we can build houses that our people can afford. Home building is a Trump-proof sector. Get out of the way so that our workers can work, our businesses can build, and our economy can be strong and self-reliant.
President Donald Trump said Friday he would impose a 100% tariff on China over and above any tariff they are currently paying, effective November 1st, essentially doubling the already crushing tariffs on Chinese goods. The huge import taxes would come on top of the 44% tariff rate already in place on China, effectively cutting off trade between the world's two largest economies, according to analysts. But here's where the story gets really interesting. While Trump was making headlines with his tariff threats, he was quietly executing a much more sophisticated strategy, one that involves taking direct stakes in mining companies to secure America's mineral independence. The Trilogy Metals deal is just the tip of the iceberg, the U.S. Department of Energy having cut a similar deal with Canada's Lithium Americas 2 weeks ago, while the Department of Defense bought a stake in Las Vegas, Nevada-based MP Materials in July. The White House has subsequently taken stakes in Lithium Americas and Trilogy Metals, fueling investor speculation that more deals will follow. The market reaction has been explosive. MP Materials doubled. Lithium Americas jumped 90%. Now Trilogy Metals has surged more than 200%. USA Rare Earth soared 15%. Neocorp Development surged about 12%. Ramaco Resources rallied more than 11%. Energy Fuels advanced over 9%, and MP Materials gained more than 2%. But the Trilogy deal is particularly significant because of what it represents geopolitically. This isn't just the U.S. government investing in a domestic company. It's a foreign government taking a stake in a Canadian company. It is uncommon for a government to have a stake in a domestic company, but it's even more uncommon for a foreign government. Richard LeBlanc, a professor of governance, law, and ethics at York University, told Bloomberg. To have an outside investor who can have regulatory approval, is that a conflict of interest? It absolutely is a conflict of interest, he added. The strategic importance becomes clear when you look at what Trilogy actually owns. The partnership focuses on developing the Upper Kobuk mineral projects in Alaska's Ambler mining district. This area contains some of the world's richest copper deposits, along with zinc, lead, gold, and silver. This 200-mile corridor, known as the Ambler Access Project, will open up a region believed to contain vast deposits of copper, cobalt, gold, silver, and other strategic metals. But here's the crucial part. This project was blocked by the Biden administration over environmental concerns. The order overturns the Biden administration's 2024 decision, blocking a 211-mile road over concerns that mining could threaten caribou and fish vital to dozens of native subsistence communities. Trump reversed that decision with the stroke of a pen, clearing the way for what could become one of America's most important mining operations. The timing couldn't be more critical. Beijing will not allow the export of rare earth materials for use by foreign militaries, China's Ministry of Commerce announced on October 9th. These are the first restrictions imposed by China that specifically target the defense sector, according to Gracelyn Baskaran, a critical minerals expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. What this essentially means is that it will deny licenses to foreign militaries and companies that are producing military use end goods, Baskaran told CNBC. This puts American defense contractors in an impossible position. Defense contractors, Apple, NVIDIA, Intel, Tesla, Ford, and GM are all highly exposed, according to economists. The implications for U.S. national security are staggering, but Trump's strategy goes beyond just securing supply chains. He's fundamentally changing how America approaches industrial policy. Through Executive Order number 14,196, President Trump created what I call the MAGA Fund, America's first sovereign wealth fund. Its purpose is to channel trillions from U.S. reserve accounts into companies that strengthen the nation's industrial base and secure our most important resources. The companies tied to this agenda will have something no other firms can claim: the full backing of the U.S. government. The private sector is taking notice. This week, J.P. Morgan Chase & Company announced plans to invest up to $10 billion in direct equity and venture stakes across key industries like AI, mineral production, and defense. According to CEO Jamie Dimon, the initiative is part of a wider security and resiliency plan that commits $1.5 trillion in future financing and spending toward industries vital to U.S. and allied national security. It has become painfully clear that the United States has allowed itself to become too reliant on unreliable sources of critical minerals, products, and manufacturing, Dimon said. The scale of what's happening is unprecedented. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CNBC on Wednesday that the Trump administration could take equity stakes in other companies in the wake of China's rare earth restrictions. I wouldn't be surprised, Bessent said when asked about additional equity stakes. When we get an announcement like this week with China on the rare earths, you realize we have to be self-sufficient, or we have to be sufficient with our allies. But China isn't backing down. China's position on the trade war is consistent. We do not want it, but we are not afraid of it, they added. Beijing remained defiant, with the Commerce Ministry saying Sunday that China doesn't want a tariff war, but is also not afraid of one. It also said the export controls are not a ban on rare earth shipments, but are a sovereign right. The implications extend far beyond just trade. The renewed trade tensions between the world's two largest economies also risk derailing a potential summit between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in South Korea later this month. It would have been their first face-to-face encounter since Trump returned to power in January. I was to meet President Xi in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so, Trump wrote, referring to the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. The cancellation of this meeting could signal a complete breakdown in U.S.-China relations. But some analysts see China's move as a strategic miscalculation. China economics head Julian Evans Pritchard and China economist Leah Fahey said in a note Monday that China is also looking to boost its negotiating position and was probably frustrated that the U.S. didn't seem interested in rolling back its tariffs further. Whatever the motivation, China's recent actions were a bit of a gamble, and there is a risk that they could backfire, they wrote. The reason is simple. China's rare earth dominance, while formidable, isn't insurmountable. Former White House advisor Ball, who is now a senior fellow at the Foundation for American Innovation, said China's strict rare earth controls represent an opportunity for the rest of the world to build a new supply chain that can withstand weaponization by any one country. Always remember that supply is elastic, he added. If our lives depend on it, we can surmount many challenges far faster than the policy planners in Beijing, Brussels, and Washington realize. And that's exactly what's happening. The Trump administration's direct investments are accelerating the development of alternative supply chains at breakneck speed. This will certainly also further accelerate U.S. efforts to develop our own rare earth resources, Marcus said. Rare earth stocks have surged as investors speculate that the Trump administration will strike deals with other miners. The transformation is already visible in the markets. The government's increasing interest in domestic mining has triggered sharp gains across the broader critical minerals sector. Shares of USA Rare Earth, which is developing a mine and a magnet-making facility, have nearly doubled over the past month. But the real game changer might be the speed at which this is all happening. Trilogy Metals soared more than 200% on the news on Tuesday, closing up 211% for the day. For a company that was trading deep in penny stock territory just 24 hours earlier, this was a dramatic comeback, and another clear sign that Washington is willing to put money where its policy is. The broader implications are staggering. What we're witnessing isn't just a trade war, it's the complete restructuring of the global economy around strategic competition. Hawkish advisors on both sides of the Pacific will undoubtedly be using the current spat as an opportunity to try to lock in deeper U.S.-China decoupling, Capital Economics said. At best, we may return to the uneasy trade truce that had held up until now. But for American investors and the broader economy, Trump's strategy represents something unprecedented: the marriage of national security policy with industrial development, backed by the full financial power of the U.S. government. Washington has been taking equity stakes in industries it considers essential to national security, including critical minerals and semiconductor companies, as part of President Donald Trump's wider policy to reduce reliance on China. The Trilogy Metals surge is just the beginning. As Treasury Secretary Bessent made clear, more deals are coming. Bessent said the Trump administration will impose price floors across a range of industries to combat market manipulation by China. This isn't just about rare earths, it's about reshaping entire industries to serve American strategic interests. The question now is whether Trump's gamble will pay off. Can the U.S. really build alternative supply chains fast enough to break China's stranglehold on critical minerals? The early signs are promising, but the real test will come in the months ahead as these projects move from speculation to actual production. What's clear is that we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how global economics and national security intersect. The age of purely market-driven resource allocation is over. In its place, we're seeing the emergence of what could be called strategic capitalism, where governments directly invest in companies and industries deemed critical to national survival. For investors, this creates unprecedented opportunities. Companies that secure government backing aren't just getting capital, they're getting guaranteed markets, price support, and protection from foreign competition. That's a recipe for massive returns, as the Trilogy Metals surge demonstrates. But it also creates massive risks. If Trump's strategy fails, if China retaliates in ways that cripple the American economy, or if these government-backed companies can't deliver on their promises, the fallout could be catastrophic. What we know for certain is that the rare earths war is just getting started. China has thrown down the gauntlet with its latest export restrictions. Trump has responded with tariffs and direct government investment. The next moves will determine not just who controls these critical materials, but who shapes the global economy for decades to come. The 1,200% surge in Trilogy Metals isn't just a stock story, or it's a preview of the new world order, and Trump is betting everything that America can win this race.